Kia ora koutou, welcome to Face to Face. So we're talking to Wellington's mayoral candidates, and today we have with us Justin Lester.
Morning, Jeff.
And of course, we also have with us our farmyard noises. If things get too political, get us back to the issues. So Justin, a bogan from Invercargill.
Originally, yes. So I grew up in south Invercargill. Mum was a beneficiary, but later on she had a partner. He worked at the freezing works. And it was good times. I used to play rugby league. I had a bit of a spiky haircut and a mullet. Big fan of the Warriors. And prior to the Warriors, the Manly Sea Eagles, so Matthew Ridge and those guys.
If you can send us through any old photos, we'll put them up on this video.
I can actually. So I had Sir Peter Leach. We had the launch of the Rugby League World Cup, and I was up there as a bit of a keen leaguey, and he made mention of the fact. And then so I sent him through a picture of me, and I'm wearing a Parramatta Eel shirt. I've got a trophy for I think doing quite well that season, and I've got spiky hair and a big old mullet.
And now living in Johnsonville with 2 kids.
Yeah, so I'm in Johnsonville now. Married to Liz. I've got 2 kids, Madeline and Harriet. Yeah.
And what's the one thing you want people to know about your campaign?
I'm running a really positive campaign. I love Wellington. I know we've got an amazing city, but I think we can make it even better. And so the 3 things I'm focusing on is the economy and jobs. So I own Carpi. It's my own business. I set that up 10 years ago. We had 2 employees then. We've grown that to 50 employees all across Wellington and up into Auckland now too. And I also want to focus on transport and housing, but with balance. So I understand that you need to invest in infrastructure, but we also need social investment, and that's why I've got a big focus on housing, warm, dry, affordable housing, but also homelessness, getting people off our streets and into long-term accommodation. That's why I've proposed the wet house as well, which will be New Zealand's first wet house, an innovative approach to addressing homelessness.
So that's where people can still drink. They don't have to go totally dry before they get some sort of accommodation.
Yeah, that's right. So currently, if we've got shelter accommodation, for example, you can't take alcohol in. And the problem with that is we've got 55 people sleeping rough, and about 90% of them have an alcohol addiction. They can't get long-term accommodation. People won't take them into private accommodation, to Housing New Zealand, or even to council housing because of their addiction problems. So we get them into a wet house, we get services around them, and from there we aim to get them into independent accommodation to moderate their alcohol intake. And most importantly, to get them off the streets. Wellingtonians don't want people drinking on the streets, and they are caring, they are considerate. And
so back to the economy. I mean, of course, a few years ago it was last one left, turn out the lights, sort of call from John Key. What's your plans there to get the economy going? Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, in 2013, John Key said Wellington's dying. But this year he came back and said Wellington's booming. In 2013 we did a business survey of 508 Wellington businesses. 31% I think thought that Wellington economy would improve, that they were positive about it. This year we came back and it's 60%. So we've seen a dramatic turnaround, and that's by having a confident perception, a buoyant perception about the city and what we're doing with it. And that's why I investigated projects like the airport extension. That's why we're moving ahead with the movie museum and the convention centre, which will be just down here on Wakefield and Cable Street. Because we've said, look, we need to have a vision for the city and what it looks like, and we've got Wellingtonians buying into that as well. So the airport is probably the most controversial of those proposals. Of course, no one living in the area probably wants a bigger airport. That's to be understood. But I mean, you've been one of the most outspoken supporters for the airport. Why do you think it's so important? Well, it's my portfolio, so I've had to speak on its behalf for a start. But I also am fully confident that we need to analyse and understand whether the project's a goer. It's not something to be afraid of. Looking ahead 50 years is not something you should close your mind to, because, I mean, let's look, for example, Mount Victoria Tunnel. That was first designated the second tunnel in 1945. It's always been planned for tens of years now. But so this is the second tunnel we don't even have? Yeah, the second tunnel we don't have was designated in 1945. For 60 years? Yes, for more, 70 years. Right. So likewise... Yeah. I'm the economist. So likewise, the airport, the extension. We've had 6 extensions of the airport. And what convinced me that this was worth analysing was the fact that in 1968 we had a proposal to extend the airport. And people at the time said, we don't need to, we can't afford it, we can hub via Auckland. Air New Zealand said we don't want it, and government said we should have one central airport in Auckland. That was to extend the airport to allow direct flights into Australia. That was 46 years ago. Now we have 70 flights a week. No one would say these days that Australians don't want to come to Wellington, or Wellingtonians don't want to fly into Australia.
What that shows me is that looking 46 or 50 years ahead, times are likely to be pretty different. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm glad the council and the government extended the airport. I'm glad we have direct flights to Australia, because otherwise we'd be a regional airport only, and we don't want that for the city.
Okay, so it sounds like, you know, you're supportive, but there's some qualifications there. You know, what are the tests that the airport needs to meet to get your unqualified support?
Well, it's a very complex project, and it's a lot of money. So the three things you'd absolutely have to see: there'd have to be a resource consent approval, so it'll go to the Environment Court by the end of this year, and there'll be a decision sometime next year. That would need to have approval, that would need to consider the environmental effects, it would need to consider the economic benefit to the city as being more than substantial. For every dollar return, you'd want to see a multiple return. If those things don't stack up, you know, I won't be supporting the project. Likewise, we'll need central government funding. I'm committed to only contributing no more than 33% of the funding for the project, because we own about 33% or 34% of the airport as well. So central government would need to have quite a large contribution. And thirdly, we'd need to have an airline partner. So we'd need to see long-term commitment from an airline or multiple airlines. But the good news on that front is Singapore Airlines is commencing flights from Wellington to Singapore via Canberra on September 21. So that gives us an effective 2-year trial to see what the level of demand is, how many Wellingtonians want to fly on that route into Asia, how many Asians or from other countries want to fly from Singapore into Wellington. Also, as an interesting aside, how many Canberrans want to come into Wellington, what the level of demand is from tourism and the like as well.
So you don't want to go to Canberra though, do you? Really?
Well, to be honest,
do you want to go to Canberra?
I wouldn't mind checking it out. I'm probably not going to fly just there to go to see Canberra, but if I'm going to fly into Asia, I'd stop off for a couple of days, because as I understand it, it's quite a beautiful city. It's got Australia's best national institutions, museums, the art galleries, good food culture.
And some of Australia's strongest containment laws, actually.
Which is another positive about Canberra. But again, so that's another connection. And Australia's highest income earners live in Canberra. I mean, the fact that they can now come to Wellington and check it out, or that anyone from the ACT travelling to New Zealand is now going to hub via Wellington, is a positive for the city.
Okay, so supported in concept, but there's some pretty big hurdles. I imagine the government funding is going to be a pretty big hurdle to get over.
So if we don't get the government funding, the project won't proceed. That's my guess. But I'm not afraid of doing due diligence on a project, but I'm also quite careful in my own assessment. I'm not going to just believe what's put in front of me. I'll do my own rigorous analysis. I'll have things peer reviewed. I'll talk to many parties and make sure that it stacks up in the best interest of Wellingtonians.
Cool. One last question for you, Justin. Nick Leggett's policy and to roll out what's happening on Island Bay now to more parts of the capital. I mean, seems I know you probably don't want to support another party candidate's policies, but that seems like a great idea, doesn't it? To give more power to local communities to decide their local plan?
Well, it's a really good idea because I set off that process. So I introduced that and got unanimous support from councillors to do that in Island Bay, and that's how I would approach it in the future too. So in my own community up in the northern suburbs, we've got a 10-year plan with Newlands, we've got a 10-year plans with Johnsonville, and I work with those local communities on those 10-year plans and to get those projects into our long-term plan at council. And that's why we've seen in Newlands, for example, an upgrade of Newlands Suburban Centre to transform that from what was a bit of a ghetto 6 years ago to quite a thriving little hub now, doing really well with a new world, aesthetically pleasing trees, a new public toilet, all the graffiti's been removed. Likewise in Johnsonville, we've upgraded the swimming pool, learn to swim facilities, new roading improvements. We're building a new library. So I would like to see that for every suburb having a 10-year plan, working with council, and I'll work towards that. And one other thing, as I've learned, is it's really important to have the mayor being engaged with different communities. So I've said, look, we'll have a mayor in the chair session every month. So I'll go to a community every month and we'll sit with them and listen firsthand to all of their issues because I think that's important to get out and about and talk to each different community.
Well, you're going to be a busy boy if you get in, mate.
Well, it's already been pretty busy, so I'm used to that. I'm used to the role. I've been deputy mayor for 3 years, so I know what it looks like. And I've been acting mayor on several occasions, including up until today. So I know what the role is. I can hit the ground running and looking forward to doing a good job.
Thanks very much, Justin Lester.
Thanks for watching that right till the end. If you'd like to stay in touch with what we do here at the Morgan Foundation, click here or visit us at morganfoundation.org.nz. Ideas to action.